So, have you ever been like watching like a movie or a TV show or something, and it starts to feel like, I don't know, like you're kind of in the room with the characters, but not in like the good immersion kind of way. It's like, oh, I'm really there. More like you're sitting in a theater and they're performing a play, but you're the only one there. And so they're kind of just like talking just to you. Does that make sense? I myself am a writer. Terrible time to be one. Exposition and delivering it in an effective way is probably one of the hardest parts about writing, in my opinion. Bad exposition and exposition dumping can immediately take you out of whatever you're watching. If you aren't familiar with what exposition is essentially the boring part of whatever you're doing that it's just information you gotta get out to whoever's consuming that media. Information about the characters, the plot, the setting. The hard part is doing it in a way that's like interesting and doesn't feel like someone literally just explaining things to you. And exposition dumping is essentially that. It's someone, usually just one character, monologuing about information that's clearly just stuff that needs to be relayed to the audience. I recently discovered probably one of the worst cases of exposition dumping that I have ever seen. And that sounds dramatic, and I usually am dramatic, but in this case, I mean it. It's a movie that I've been hearing a lot about and was actually very excited to watch. Red, White, and Royal Blue. Full disclosure before we even get into it, I didn't finish the movie. I probably am not going to. I stopped 20 minutes in. This was me pushing through it. This was me forcing myself to watch it. And I've seen nobody talking about how terrible the exposition delivery in this movie is. I just have to talk about it. I've been wanting to do a video for a while, and it's taking me fucking ages to get to the point. So something one of my dramatic writing professors used to always say was that you should start your scenes as late as possible. And what that essentially means is you don't want to waste time doing stuff that's redundant or unnecessary. Every moment of screen time, every line delivered should be necessary, especially when you're making a movie where you're already functioning within a much more limited time frame than if you were writing like a TV show. The entire first 4 minutes of Red, White, and Royal Blue can be cut. The entire first 4 minutes. That's a lot. I know it doesn't sound like a lot and it seems like I'm just being dramatic, but like, again, you already have a much more limited time frame, and I would have preferred this to be a short series anyway. I think it would have functioned a lot better. And the pacing is something else I'm going to get into, but that's later. So the fact that literally the first 4 minutes is unnecessary, that's awful. That first scene, that first image, that first line is the most important in the entire thing, because that's what hooks your viewers. It's the same with books. The first line of a book, the first page, if it doesn't interest you, if it doesn't intrigue you in some way, you're not going to want to keep reading. And they chose to start off this movie with a fucking news broadcast. It's so bad! That's a platform where people are already just delivering a lot of information. So you can use that to get across exposition. It's just boring. Especially to start your movie with. This is my own personal rule with my writing, and I think it's a good rule to have. You should never go with your first instinct. The first thing you're going to think of are tropes and cliches, the stuff that's been done before. I think you should always be thinking of, this is the way that I would normally do it. How can I make it more interesting? How can I make it unique? How can I tailor fit it to my story? But instead, they just decided to go with the first choice, and also, it's so thinly veiled as just an exposition dump that it doesn't even sound believable as information that news broadcasters would give.
Prince Henry, known affectionately as Prince of England's Hearts, and their younger sister, Princess Beatrice, whom all the world adores. Alex Claremont Diaz, The charismatic son of the American president.
Within the context of this world, if these people are royalty, if they're the upper echelon of society, if they're so popular and charismatic and loved as you're claiming, the people watching this broadcast would already have this information. They would know their names. These are clearly just like character notes of like, oh, you're pitching the script. Here's the characters. Here's like a little information about their personalities and like their relationships or whatever. That's literally like they copy and pasted that. But I could set it aside. I could set that aside. I was like, you know what? Probably a first draft. You're just like, here's the characters, we gotta get them out. Boom, 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 let's go. So I was hopeful. I was like, you know what? They got it out. We're gonna move on. We're gonna get into the story. Nope. Another one of the big rules of screenwriting, which even if you aren't a writer, you've probably heard of, is show, don't tell. Obviously, the main interpretation of that is if there's some sort of information that you can get across through visuals, you should probably do that. Show don't tell doesn't say that you can't have dialogue in your movie, otherwise every movie would be just a silent film. So you can have scenes through dialogue where characters are just in a room talking, but they're not just outright telling you information. It's a little bit more hard to write, but it's a lot more interesting to see and to hear. Choosing to tell instead of show can also bite you in the ass, because sometimes what the writer thinks doesn't match up with the way that they're portraying things. So in this case, I don't know, I'm gesturing to my TV where the movie is, but you can't see that. But anyway, we are told that Alex is charming and people like him.
The charismatic son of the American president.
Just remember you're handsome and charming and everyone loves you.
But the only person who seems to like him in some sort of way is his friend, which I'm pretty sure is the vice president's granddaughter, is what they said.
Nora Holleran, the vice president's granddaughter.
She's talking about us.
But also, I don't even know her name, because she's literally just there for Alex to bounce stuff off of. Like, I don't mind the scene in the car where he like has like a vulnerable moment with her, because since she is his close personal friend, he is talking about his vulnerabilities and insecurities.
It's the whole Prince Henry comparison thing. He spent his entire life attending fancy events like this. He was trained for this. I feel like if I use the wrong fork at dinner, they're just gonna eat me alive.
Like, that stuff is interesting. You don't need it in the first few minutes. You can get that across later, and it can be used to justify why he doesn't like Prince Henry. But that's kind of like all she does. That's it.
Okay, you've been yucking my yum all day. What's going on with you?
See, I love me a little bit of political intrigue, a little bit of drama. That's why I was, like, thinking that I might actually like this movie, aside from just thinking that it was hot. So I love the stuff where it's like they're presenting this very, like, well put together image to the public, but behind closed doors they're like, oh, this is a real shit show. And he makes the comment about the cake.
The cake alone costs £75,000. They practically had to break the doors down to get it inside. It's obscene.
Isolated in its own little thing, I think that was, you know, pretty decent, pretty haha funny, and also like tells us a bit about Henry and how he sort of feels about everything. But when the first couple minutes has just been getting pummeled with exposition, having extra information added on just, it hurts more than it helps, you know? It just feels like I'm suffocating. Like, yes, there's some, like, little character moments or whatever, but, like, none of this is stuff that hasn't already been said or stuff that will not be said.
Prince Henry is so yummy.
He's such a snob. So smug and entitled.
He's very animated.
He's the world's rudest person.
He's the world's most irritating person.
I swear that he is not 6'2".
And it's kind of funny because I'm going to be talking about, like, them repeating stuff, but I'm probably going to repeat a lot of stuff. But that's just because I have ADHD. What's your excuse, movie? Anyway. So then we arrive at the wedding scene. This is where the movie should have started. I actually really like this scene, which is good because, I mean, it's the inciting incident. It's literally the thing that sets the plot in motion. It should be a decent scene. But it also frustrates me because it proves to me that whoever wrote this movie, I don't really care enough to look it up, is actually pretty decent at getting across information. They just chose to be lazy. We get everything we need to know about Henry and Alex and their relationship with each other from that little interaction they have. And I think it's great.
What's up? Long time no see. Killer wedding, man.
Glad you're enjoying yourself?
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love a little Mozart?
Actually, it's Schubert.
Did your parents send you to snobbery school, or does looking down on people just come naturally to you?
Well, in your case, I would say it's rather inevitable.
We are the same height.
If you say so, Alex. Great to see you.
You too, Your Majesty.
Actually, it's Your Royal Highness. Your Majesty is reserved for the king.
I like a bit of slapstick humor occasionally when it's done right. I think the choreography of the scene is pretty good. The cake stuff is nice. I think we also learn a lot about the side characters based on their reactions. So when Alex first puts the frosting stuff on Henry, and Henry's first reaction is to look over to his brother and try and like play it off and act like everything's fine because he wants to like put on a good face. That small interaction, that glance, tells us a lot about their relationship and how his opinion is important to him and like he wants to earn his respect. Like stuff like that you can infer just from that non-verbal interaction. That's what I'm talking about with show don't tell. We don't even need to know his name. I don't give a shit about his name. We can learn that later. And also their sister, whatever it's Barbara or something, I don't know. The fact that her reaction is to like laugh, that tells us about her character and how she sees like the royal stuff, which is information that we learned in the previous scene. And I mentioned how I like the comment that Henry makes about the cake in a sort of isolated sense. I thought it was cute or whatever. But Alex also makes a comment about the cake and how much it costs. It's used in a better way to like have a little back and forth banter.
Oh, you gotta wonder how many families you could feed with what this cake costs.
Probably not as many as if we put your shoes on auction.
Ha! Rude.
Even the stuff that I praised about like the earlier scene, it's repeated again. Like even the minor little things. It feels like those first few scenes were tacked on because they were afraid that people wouldn't understand what was happening. I think that's a big problem that is affecting a lot of our movies nowadays, is writers being insecure and not trusting their audience to be intelligent enough to piece a story together. I like that scene. I think the song that they use is cliche, but I think it's a pretty decent example of how you can get across exposition in a way that's not super boring. I wish they would have just started with that. This scene is another perfect example of the fact that the writer or writers, again, I don't care to look it up, can deliver exposition in a way that not only makes sense, but is interesting, but just choose not to. I don't know. So I'm gonna split this scene in half. Starting with the first part, which is Uma Thurman. I don't know why she's in this movie. She's too good to be in this movie. All she says is that she's been working on a trade deal with England that is now at risk because of the stunt that Alex pulled at the wedding. And since re-election is coming up, her numbers are down, worried about getting re-elected, whatever. That is like the crux of what she says. But she takes so long to say it. The entire time that she's on screen is her just saying that same information in different ways.
I sent you to London with some pretty simple instructions. Represent the family at the royal wedding and don't cause an international incident. We have spent the last 3 years negotiating a new trade deal with His Majesty's government. Before this weekend, I had a higher approval rating than the Prime Minister. And overnight, you've managed to undo all that.
People deserve better from our closest ally than this juvenile stunt. And it certainly casts a pall over our negotiation.
The exposition in this part of the scene was not only bad, but it was so bad that it reminded me of Neil Breen.
I'm on the ballot again in 14 months, and I need the farming exports and manufacturing jobs that this deal provides to take to Midwest voters.
Which, if you don't know who Neil Breen is, basically, first of all, look it up. Great stuff. If something that you've written reminds someone of Neil Breen, it's not a good sign. Neil Breen movies are the perfect example of how not to deliver exposition, because every scene is him just saying the plot out loud.
I'm going to continue hacking into these government systems to see what I can find out about all this national and international corruption I know is going on.
I'm on the ballot again in 14 months, and I need the farming, exports, and manufacturing jobs that this deal provides to take to Midwest voters.
I can't believe you committed suicide.
But, like, that's what she's doing, is she's saying the same information in the most basic roundabout way for way too long, where it's just meandering. As she's leaving, she's like, Zara will explain everything. I thought you just did. Like, what was the point of that then? First of all, why are you even here if the stuff that needs to be explained hasn't been explained? And also, why didn't we just start with that? We could have started this scene with Zara explaining everything. But instead, we get the president just being like, oh, woe is me. No one's gonna vote for me. And then she leaves. So that part's bad. But the next part's pretty decent. I think most of it has to do with Zara. Because who's... Sarah Shahi, I think? I've never seen her in anything else. She's great. Again, I only watched 20 minutes of this movie, but the only times I actually, like, enjoyed myself were when she was on screen. Because she's just really funny.
You hear that, Zara? He's opening with a joke.
Maybe he can host the correspondence dinner next year.
I'd be down.
No.
Ah! Zara! What are you? Stop! Is he gonna fact shit on me?
Yes. And I can assure you that making it was one of the most depressing moments of my career. And I once saw Mitch McConnell eating a banana. You can hate Prince Henry all you want, but the minute you see a camera, you better act like the sun shines out of his ass and you have a vitamin D deficiency.
Zara also delivers exposition, but it's framed as a mission briefing. How many movies have you seen where they're like, here's your mission. You're gonna break into the bank and shoot all the guys and steal the diamond and then get the hell out of there. That's a way to deliver exposition that's common, but it's still, you know, it's not terrible as long as it's, you know, succinct and can be believed as something that would be told to someone as a mission briefing. It's fine. Like in this scene, she's like, you're gonna go back to London and you and Henry are gonna act like your best buds to improve relations.
You're flying back to London tonight.
What? Why?
To undo all the damage you've done. The White House and the palace are going to release a joint statement explaining that what happened at the wedding was a complete misunderstanding.
Which it was.
And despite rarely having time to see one another, you and Prince Henry are in fact close personal friends and have been for the last several years.
Zara.
This is a fact sheet on Prince Henry. Memorize it.
He's not 6'2".
And like, that's it. That's how you do it. That's like, you know how to do it. So why don't you? At no point in reading this or watching this were they like, I feel like we're repeating ourselves a lot. Like, at no point did anybody stop and say, do we need to say this 50,000 times or do we think they're gonna get it? Editing. Writing is rewriting, people. It's important. Don't just use the first draft. Hello, this is Editing Nico from the future. So in the effort of not repeating myself too much, I'm just gonna speed through the next 3 scenes because a lot of the stuff that I had to say about them when I originally recorded is stuff that I have said over and over again. So let's just get into it. So the scene immediately following the briefing is entirely useless in my opinion. Like, Zara told him to read the file. We can just assume that he did it. We don't need to see him, like, studying. And they also give, like, a bunch of, like, extra unnecessary information. Like, I don't care that his father was an actor and his mom started her own climate nonprofit or whatever. Like, I'm just here to see 2 hot guys make out. I don't want to think about the climate. Like, what's the point of that? Also, the dog name joke was stupid and cringe. Anyway, speaking of jokes that are stupid, the Aquari joke in the next scene is very stupid and goes on for way too long and is not funny. And that entire scene also is useless because it's another example of there's a scene and then there's another scene where they both do the same thing but one does it better. And that's the case here where they're taking a picture together and it's like, ooh, they don't like each other. And then the literal next scene is they're doing an interview together and ooh, they don't like each other. And that's like, there's no other information. But the interview scene I actually like, even though, again, it's cliche, but it's cute, and the Vicky thing was funny.
In the reign of Queen Victoria, they were having food fights all the time.
Vicky. Classic.
Similarly to the wedding scene, they have some fun cheeky ba'a in this scene. Oh my god. And it's also in the interview scene that we learn that they met at a climate conference, which I assume is why they mentioned that his mom has a climate nonprofit, but also if they met there, then Alex would know that, and blah, 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 whatever. So, why not just only have... I'm repeating myself again, but this movie's bad. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm just gonna move on to the part that I hate. This was my breaking point. I pushed a little bit farther past this. I think I, like, out loud was like, what the fuck? Like, when I saw this, because I just couldn't believe... So anyway, they're reading this book out to kids, but we don't even hear that. We just hear him saying, do you guys know who this guy is? And they're like, no. And he's like, he's the president's son. And that's the scene. Like, if they want to read a book to kids, whatever. Cute, I guess. Aw. But, like, literally all he says is, like, he's the president's son, I'm royalty. What do you think about that?
Do you know who this is? Well, his mum is the President of the United States. And my mum is the Duchess of Edinburgh, which means that his mum outranks my mum. What do we think of that?
And then they move on. And I'm like, what was the point? Because then it just goes to him and be like, you come here often? And he's like, yeah, every now and again. And then there's a fucking shooter? Like, what?
You visit this place a lot?
Every couple months. Never with photographers, though.
Stay down.
Oh my god, it's so bad. Why is nobody talking about this? I feel insane. Like, it's just so, oh. So anyway, there's a shooter, quote unquote, which I feel like they do not treat with, like, the gravity that they should have. Cause, like, this guard just shoves him into a closet, which, haha, in the closet, whatever. This scene should be happening so much later than it is. Again, we're not even 30 minutes into this movie, and they're already having a heart-to-heart discussion. Unless I'm mistaken, this entire movie is about them going from enemies to lovers. So why, before we're even through the first half of this movie, are we already veering into the friend zone? Like, they go from being, like, hating each other. Like, every interaction they have is just full of rage. And then they have this little discussion about why they hate each other. I'm going to talk about the reasoning, the explanation. So during their little heart-to-heart that they have, Alex explains why he doesn't like Henry. Which, again, I know I'm repeating myself. This is not something that should be happening at this point in the movie. But it's also the absolute most anticlimactic shit I have. Alex acts like Henry committed a fucking war crime or something. Like, the way that he interacts with this man, like, is just pure disgust. Like, if you hate him just for being a snobby, rich white dude, sure. But, like, he acts like it's personal. Everybody else doesn't seem to hate him as much as Alex does. So it has to be something that happened between them. And it seems to be mutual. So what happened? Oh, Henry was mean to him.
Climate conference in Melbourne, first night party. I went to introduce myself to you and you looked at me like I had head lice. Then you turned to your equerry and said, get me out of here.
I didn't realize you'd heard that.
So you do admit that's a douchey thing to say?
I could have been nicer. All right, what else? Couldn't have just been the conference. Oh my God, it is. It is, isn't it?
Don't minimize it.
How could I possibly? It's already as minimal as it gets. Are you seriously telling me that one meeting years ago in which, yes, I admittedly acted ungenerously towards you, has occupied such a vast mental and emotional space in your head?
Sure, when you put it like that. But it was my first foray into the world as a public figure, and I was really scared, and you could have helped me, and you didn't.
You were supposed to be there for me, person I didn't know at the time. You were supposed to help lead me through this new experience, but you were an asshole. So now I act like you stabbed my best friend 50 times right in front of me. You're so dramatic. And they both, this is also on Henry, they both act like they just are arch enemies. There is some intrigue as like, oh, what happened? But to find out, again, in the first 15 minutes of the movie, that it's just because Henry was mean to him, that's stupid. It makes me not want to watch the rest of the movie, because I'm like, oh, if that's what's keeping them from being lovers, or like being friends at the very least, I don't want to watch their relationship develop, because if that was the only obstacle, that he was like, you were mean to me, and then Henry's like, I'm sorry, and then now they're cool, that sucks. I came here for sexual and political tension. All of that just dissipated. He just didn't like that Henry was an asshole. Even though he knows Henry was an asshole. Or he is an asshole. If you don't like him, you don't like him. Like, sometimes people just don't like each other and they just deal with it. The whole point is it's these characters who don't like each other who are forced to pretend like they do. That, like, it's been done a billion times before, but, like, that's what you're trying to do, right? Hello, this is Future Nico again. I just wanted to mention really quick that, yes, I am aware that the movie points out that that's stupid, that the entire reason that Alex hates Henry is just because he was mean. I know, that doesn't make it any better, because, like, it's still so dumb, because the way that they present their hatred for each other is as if something, like, terrible happened. And again, both of them hate each other equally. So, like, at no point since that conference years ago have either of them been like, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Or Henry never was like, I wonder why this guy that I haven't even had a proper conversation with hates my guts, apparently. Maybe I should ask him. And we find out later in the scene that it was all just a big misunderstanding anyway, because what Henry said was, I need to get out of here. He wasn't talking about Alex at all. It had nothing to do with Alex. His fucking dad died and he was, like, sad or whatever. Also, how presumptuous of Alex to not only think that Henry was referring to him, but also to think that he should be obligated to act as, like, a mentor figure to him just because, like, he's new in town or whatever. And Alex doesn't even apologize to him. He figures out that this whole thing was a misunderstanding and Henry was actually going through a really tough time, and he's fucking crying thinking about it. He's reliving a very dark time in his life, and then Alex is like, oh, well, now I feel like I need to apologize. But he doesn't apologize. He just says he thinks he needs to. I guess you could argue that they get interrupted, but, like, Henry, like, immediately apologized to Alex, like, multiple times. Henry apologized to him multiple times. And he didn't even do anything wrong. He was maybe a little cold, but, like, his fucking dad died. I don't know. No matter which way I think about it, it's still dumb. I don't mind the concept of it being, like, a stupid reason, and, like, the whole joke is that, like, the whole reason he hates Henry is based on a lie. But, like, we still gotta have more than that. Like, we gotta have something, like, the other times over the years they've, like, had, like, various, like, conflicts or something. They don't mention anything aside from that conference. So all we have to go off as for why they hate each other is that conference and that minor interaction that was all based on a lie. So it's still, no matter which way you slice it, It's a stupid sandwich, and I hate it. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. And then after this scene, they have the like, he's kind of alright. Like that sort of like thing going on.
Okay. And then they became friends. They're so stinky as well. Well, we survived it. Unless we never have to see each other again.
Wrong. You're expected at my New Year's party.
No, I hate New Year's.
Wow. Most people would kill to get an invite to my party.
That's perfect. You can kill me and I won't have to go.
Some photos, Your Royal Highness.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, I need to get out of here. See you in a few months, Your Majesty. Later, Sean.
Oh, you. You. Look at us. A couple of cards. We're not even halfway through the movie. Like, slow down. You have no problem taking your time when you're explaining all this stuff. But when it comes to the heart of the movie, their relationship, suddenly it's go, go, go. Suddenly we gotta get through it. And that's where I stopped. We went from same thing over and over again to they just are friends now. You're simultaneously doing the most tropey cliche stuff and also not doing the stuff that you should be doing. You want to have your cake and eat it too. See, I can do it, movie. You know, instead of just telling us about, oh, we met at this climate conference, why don't we start the movie with them meeting for the first time and not liking each other, and we see it. This is another example of what you're telling me not matching up with what I'm being shown, because you're trying to beat me over the head with the fact that these two hate each other. They, first of all, haven't known each other for that long, haven't seen each other that much, aside from recent events where they're forced to see each other. And, like, the reason why they don't like each other is so flimsy. Either way, it's dumb. The first part of this movie is bad, and I don't want to watch the rest of it. I'm sorry. I kind of just want to look up the hot scenes, because I've heard they're pretty good. And that's what I was there for anyway. If the rest of this movie is a masterpiece, and I just so happen to stop at the moment where it's about to get good, fuck me, I guess. But also, this first act, these first few scenes, they're all supposed to set everything else up for the rest of the movie. You're supposed to set yourself up for success. You have to establish everything that's important for Act 2, which is where all the conflict comes in, and then Act 3, where it's all resolved, whatever. And Act 1 is usually just the first 30 minutes, so I'm not even halfway through Act 1. It's simultaneously so sluggish and also so fast. Like, the pacing's all over the place. The exposition is sloppy, at best. The characters have good chemistry, but we also barely get to see them interact in a way that's not just them saying exposition. There's a bunch of scenes that are literally just straight up useless and do nothing but waste time. I'm just beating a dead horse at this point, but like, do better. I don't know. The gays deserve better than this. We deserve better than this. Like, I didn't go into it expecting it to be bad. I wanted to like this movie. If I didn't go into it wanting to like it, I would not have made it past the first 3 minutes. Like, I know I have high standards. When it comes to gay shit, my standards go out the window. Like, most of the time I would be willing to admit that I was judging something too harshly, but in this case, I don't think I am. Anyway, I think I got it out of my system. If you watched this, thank you for watching. If you're watching this currently, that means you watched it, so thank you. I hope, if anyone is watching this, that it does make sense, and maybe if you saw this movie, you can sort of see where I'm coming from. Let me know your thoughts, if you have any you would like to share. If you have seen the whole movie, or at least past the first like 20 minutes, let me know if it's worth getting through. But yeah. Thanks. Okay. Love you.